Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 2019 Harkleroad-Adams mid-season show. I'm your host, Drew Hare. We have our analysts, Matt Harkleroad and Chris Adams. Guys, we are recording right before the start of Week 10. I think it's Chargers and the Raiders tonight.
That's correct.
So we are just a little more than halfway through the season. Everybody's played at least 8 games.
Yeah, most have played 8, a couple have played 9.
Exactly. Everybody's at least played 8, so we at least, for every team we have, at least a half season.
You got to pick one of the 2 weeks. You can either do it when some only get 7, or you do it when some have 9.
Exactly.
So I think we'll go that way.
Little extra day.
So it's an extra day for us too.
What are your overall impressions of the first half? Do you guys, when we talked a couple weeks ago, we were talking about how even after the first quarter, things were still a little chalky. You were still seeing, obviously,
the cream was risen tight.
The Patriots were still winning. And that's essentially what we're saying here. But are we starting to see some trends developing, some change coming along?
I think so. I think although it still seems pretty chalky when you really break it down, there are some interesting anomalies that are happening. And if anyone would have put money that the San Francisco 49ers would be the last unbeaten team,
8-0.
No one would have predicted that, right? So there is some surprises. Yes, if San Francisco is in that division, Seattle will be leading that division. So no super shocker there. Besides San Francisco being maybe in the otherwise you've got some we had some injuries that didn't even seem to bother a couple of teams with some big injuries like. New Orleans just keeps rolling.
Oh, yeah, with Bridgewater. It didn't even seem like they missed a beat.
Yeah, there wasn't really any difference when Brees came back for 1 week either. So it's just, same old story. It seems like for some of these teams we thought would be maybe have a little issue. And so it has been chalky with a couple of surprises. I think Baltimore also a surprise kind of team.
I think we're not surprised that Baltimore's good. It's just the way that Baltimore's doing it now. You go from Joe Flacco to Lamar Jackson's like, welcome to the 21st century. Essentially the way that they're running that ball. What do you, Chris?
I just want to talk about the Niners for a minute here.
Go for it.
And how really good that they've been this year, which I know is an understatement. They're the last undefeated team. But, they were a team coming into this year. A lot of people said them as an ultimate wild card. Nobody really knew. Right? They won a bunch with Garoppolo 2 years ago. But he was out all of last year, which in a weird way ended up being a blessing because it got them Nick Bosa. Garoppolo's back. But just the way they're doing it. The same thing. So this is, the NFL is a copycat league, as we know, I think to a fault. And so you've got all these teams, there's, influx of college concepts and spread and air raid concepts, and it's very much a pass-happy league.
Right.
And then you've got the Niners, who employ a fullback regularly, who do a lot of power running, who, Kyle Shanahan, who I think has done the best coaching job outside of New England this year, just has that team buying into the system. Garoppolo is making good plays. Last week was the first game they really depended on him throwing the ball, but he did a great job. He's being like a game manager plus. He's making the plays. They still ride on their running and their defense, but he's more than capable of making plays. So I just give all the credit in the world to Shanahan and the Niners for what they're doing there and saying, no, we're not going to just try to emulate everybody else. We're going to do something that makes sense for us.
For their roster.
And the same thing with Baltimore, too, doing the same thing. I wouldn't necessarily recommend doing what either one of those teams are doing to every team in the league, but they've crafted the offense to the players that they have, and you just don't see that.
Both teams
much.
have obviously amazing rushing attacks. Both teams essentially have tight ends as their lead receivers, but obviously what the Niners have with Sanders. Emmanuel Sanders, after what he's come back from, to still be taking that big of a chunk and looking really good,
and being a number 1 wide receiver option. That's. All more praise to him, and having the ability to do that. You look at Baltimore and you think, okay, it's a run offense centered around Lamar, but Lamar's playing good quarterback play too. He is throwing the ball well. He's spreading the ball around to everybody that they have to throw the ball to. It's actually been, they've been one of the funner teams, as much as I hate to admit that I like watching them. They have been a fun team to watch.
And that Patriots game was so eye-opening. They threw it to like 3 different tight ends in that game.
Harbaugh's also coaching his ass off there, too.
They are.
Definitely.
So I know we talked to, Niners are obviously a surprise. Surprised to see like Baltimore, how they're doing it. First half disappointments, either whether it's a team, player, coach, maybe they're all part of the same thing. When you guys
do you want to say it, or do you want me to?
I mean, we're probably all in the same boat here. I mean, I think the entire...
You guys picked up where I was going.
Every NFL analyst has said the same things that we're going to say 1,000 times probably, is that, I mean, the Browns have been one of the sadder displays of when the preseason hype meets complete and abject failure has been the Browns season this year. And that has been, as a Browns fan, hard to watch. Yeah. But B, I mean, you usually don't see a whole collective of people miss the mark this much. I mean, there were people that said they were the favorites, A, to win the division, and B, to be, maybe having a bye week to start to, like that was talk out there. No one said they're going to have a better record than the Patriots or maybe even Kansas City, but be in that mix. Yeah. And for it to have fallen apart so completely and utterly and so quickly, I mean, to where you're talking about firing head coaches after less than less than 9 games of coaching. I mean, you can't get a whole lot worse than what's going on there.
And it's not for lack of talent. It's just one self-inflicted wound after another. Penalties, turnovers, red zone failures, poor challenges by coaching, just a coach that's overmatched.
Yeah, it's almost like everything that you could do for a new head coach has gone wrong at some point for Freddie Kitchens this year. Like, he has done, the mind-boggling play calls and and then just game management issues that you see out of first-time head coaches, but he's having those on top of everything else, and then players that aren't wearing the right equipment. It's just like everything is going downhill, and it's like watching an avalanche.
Yeah, I mean, they have the talent to turn it around, but they need to do a lot to kind of get there.
So. Yeah, and it really does come down to expectations. Yeah. I mean, we talk about Washington and the Dolphins and the Jets are just so bad.
Yeah, I mean, the Jets have been, I think if you were to go talk to any of their big-time fans, that they're going to be pretty disappointed with this season. I think it's one of those where there was some hype. They spent a lot of money in the offseason. They tried to improve. Le'Veon, CJ Mosley. They spent some money, and they've gotten nothing out of it. I mean, you had the mono incident with Darnold for a couple of games, but ultimately they wanted to be in the playoff hunt, and they expected to be in the playoff hunt, and they're not there. And you had some, the Adam Gase bizarreness that has been this whole season.
Just like the entire team is seeing ghosts. It's not just a Darnold thing, and it's just like everybody's like just they're haunted or something.
Yeah. Or that video where he's like watching the ghost, like the balloon from the Hillary Clinton video. It's that same video. So I think those. I mean, they've been a disappointment. So I think those two are my big ones, Browns and Jets.
Yeah, I'm gonna we talked about some positive surprises and then some negative surprises or disappointments. I'm gonna throw kind of a middle level surprise.
Okay.
The Oakland Raiders. They're not great, but they're not bad. They're 4-4, and they look like a real football team. I mean, if you watched Hard Knocks this year and with the Antonio Brown stuff, you think, man, this is a clown show waiting to happen. And and also they don't know where they're playing next year and all of that. And
everything seems like it was going to end up like 3-13.
And lo and behold, they're 4-4. Gruden seems to have that team, working. Carr's been competent. Josh Jacobs is having a really nice year. The defense is being solid. Now, I don't know if this is going to last. I mean, there's a whole second half of the season that could fall apart. But they're kind of a pleasant surprise. So maybe, Gruden is smarter than we all thought.
Oh, God, I hope not.
Well, maybe he'll pop up on the Coach of the Year discussions that we have. But let's go ahead and talk about first half superlatives. So let's talk MVP. And the last time we talked, 4 weeks ago, we were talking about MVP candidates that were not named Pat Mahomes.
Yep.
And my goodness, things have just changed. And obviously that's what happens in the NFL. Injuries happen. So, Chris, who's your MVP?
I mean, I'm going to stick with Russell Wilson. My pick from the first time. He's been great. 22 touchdowns, 1 interception, keeping his team in games, making all the plays. Still go with him right now. Throw out another name that no one's really talking about at the quarterback position, but Aaron Rodgers. He's got 18 touchdowns and 2 picks, and throwing for a boatload of yards. And he's having fun. He's looking like the old Aaron Rodgers, making some amazing plays.
Yeah, I mean, you got to look at those two guys, I think. But I think you got to look at like a Lamar Jackson at this point. I mean, he is doing everything for that team. I mean, that one of my favorite videos this whole season was when where Harbaugh's like they called the kick to kick the field goal, and it goes over the sideline after, and he's
he's
like, "Do you want to go for it?" And he's like, "Yeah, I want to go for it." And then gets everybody up, and then he just plows through and gets the first down, and then scores a touchdown. I mean, he's a lot of fun to watch, and I think, as big as if they can keep this up and keep rolling with it, he's definitely be in that conversation. And then you got a couple of running backs worth talking about, probably. I mean, Chris McCaffrey has looked like
awesome,
amazing. He's like
certainly the best fantasy player this year.
For sure. Oh yeah, 1,400 yards ish now, all-purpose, close to that number. He's got almost 800 yards rushing, or almost 900 yards rushing, plus a handful of yards and touchdowns.
And looks like the best player on the field every single time.
Exactly. I think, and then and just behind him, not too far behind, is Dalvin Cook. A little less touchdowns, especially receiving, but he's having a monster season too. Yeah. Of course, he's got one more game in at this point than Christian McCaffrey does. But same point. I mean, I think it's probably going to be Russell Wilson, but if we shake it all out. But
a lot of good candidates.
Yeah, there's good players out there.
I think so too. Rookie of the year. I know that it could be a number of different guys. It could be offensive. It could be defensive.
Yeah, well, I mean, they get the NFL gives out an offense and a defense. But if we're just saying who's been the best rookie, I think that's been Nick Bosa.
Yeah, I think it's fair. He's up there. I mean,
not just the numbers, which he has, but like he's dominated 2 or 3 games this year.
Yeah, he's been the best player on the field.
A legit defensive player of the year. Not defensive player of the year.
Yeah, he has been on the field at the same time with Chris McCaffrey, so we can't say which one of those would be the best player on the field because we just made that analogy. But yeah, I mean, I think Nick Bosa has been a game changer. If nothing else, he is... Everyone has to pay attention to him, and it shows. And even when they're paying attention to him, he's getting there. I mean, I think defensively, he's probably got that locked up, barring an injury. And even if he does get to the point of missing a couple games, probably might still be enough. I mean, offensively, the offensive MVP, Rookie of the Year, not MVP, but Rookie of the Year, often goes to the best quarterback who's a rookie, and that's Kyler Murray at this point, who has played really well. I mean, a couple of rookie foibles here and there, but I mean, he has been keeping a bad Arizona team in a couple of games, won a couple of games. I think you've got to look at that as a rookie. Josh Jacobs, I think, is the other answer. And I think for those two guys,
I think it's a 2-horse race at this point.
Yeah, because I think McLaurin is definitely tailed off. I mean,
Daniel Jones is tailed off. Gardner Minshew, nice run, but Foles is coming back. So I think it's Josh and Kyler right now for that.
That seems fair.
Yeah, and either one of them deserve it. Honestly, they're having a great season. So
coaches on the hot seat. I mean, there's a few. I mean, obviously we already talked about Freddie a little bit, but you got Gase, you got
Pat Shurmur.
There's a lot. Do you guys have anyone you want to specifically talk about?
Yeah, I think Pat Shurmur is an interesting case. I mean, hasn't been there a long time. I just think that there's been so much dysfunction seemingly coming out of that organization before the season started. He hasn't really gotten anything more out of Daniel Jones as this has gone forward. You made the right call to bench Eli, but maybe you should have done it before the season started at all. I think and
he doesn't have really great track record from when he was a head coach in Cleveland either. So very good offensive coordinator, but some guys just can't get above that.
Maybe a guy like Matt Patricia might also be getting close to being on the hot seat. I think anytime you're the guy who is revolutionizing the way people coach and run practices and things don't start to work out, your head is easier to make roll. It's easier to convince a fan base that this guy was crazy and we can fire him. And I mean, I think you could say, what about Matt Nagy is another guy, but I think he's probably going to stick around for a little while.
And the Bears have been a huge disappointment, but
awful.
Maybe he gets that third year to see if they can actually figure that out, because I mean,
and they looked so good last year. I mean, so maybe he's got a longer leash, I think.
Yeah, I think so too.
Than Pat Shurmur does. Nothing last year.
I mean, you get the really, really bad teams. Like the Redskins already fired Gruden. Flores, they know he was coming into a rebuild tanking situation there, so he's not going to get fired. Zach Taylor in Cincinnati.
That one's kind of interesting, though. They've been real bad.
And they haven't really been doing the all-out tank job.
And they can't really figure out. He can't seem to make a decision at quarterback.
Quarterback play is going to be the snooze button. I think that's the same thing that's going to happen eventually with Shurmur. Maybe I'm wrong with Shurmur, but I think when you bring in the Daniel Jones or you bring in, it just hits the snooze button, whether it's or a couple of games, maybe for the rest of the year. Maybe it just buys them that little bit longer of a leash. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, the NFL is so weird with, the guys, Wilkes got a year last year, so it seems that the timetable has moved forward where it was like every coach is going to get 3 years and see what happens. That's not the rule anymore. And, I think some of these guys with 1 or 2 years on the job are probably going to get let go. I mean, Freddie Kitchens is probably gone unless they turn the season around for sure. But at this point, I don't see any way out for him besides winning 5 or 6 games the rest of the way out. And even then,
you could say that it's just a factor of the talent on the team and the weak schedule.
And then not being able to get your players to wear the right equipment. And just like in simple thing, which wouldn't be a big deal if you were winning and no one would care about it. But you just pile that on top of everything else, and Baker Mayfield snapping at reporters. It's just there's so much.
Like Freddie's done a lot of little things wrong, and like each by themselves, it's not a big deal. But when they're all happening,
it's just that snowball. It just keeps getting bigger and bigger and rolling faster and faster. And unfortunately for Freddie, I think he's at the bottom of that hill.
Odell literally wore clown shoes.
The Cleveland Clowns. Perfect.
But those were the ones that were those were the ones he started off and then switched to the gold ones later.
He was allowed to wear the gold ones. Or he wasn't allowed to wear the Joker shoes.
Shifting gears, let's talk about our original playoff picks.
You
don't want to?
Can we not?
I'll start.
Go for it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still pleased with the Patriots versus Saints with the Saints winning. I mean, why argue with that? Pats are still a class of the AFC until someone knocks them off. Now, I do think, earlier a couple weeks ago, people were talking about, can they go 19-0? And I think it's clear that this is far from the most talented New England team out there. I mean, Baltimore beat them last week. Even the Cleveland game, the Browns lost that game because of self-inflicted wounds, not because New England was more talented.
Struggled against
Buffalo. Yeah. I mean, they've got Belichick and they've got Brady, so they're going to be in it. Until someone knocks them off in the AFC, they're the team to beat.
And they're weak scheduled stuff too.
Exactly. They were able to build up all those wins.
Exactly.
The second half is when they're playing the Chiefs, they're playing the Texans, they're playing the Cowboys. I think they still got to play the Eagles. There's a lot of good teams in that second half, but they already have 8 wins.
Exactly.
So, I mean, if you split that and you get 11, 12 wins, that's probably good enough for potentially home field.
Yeah. And then in the NFC, I mean, the Saints, what they've done this year, they've kind of flown under the radar a little bit with like New England,
I think
San Francisco,
the Breeze injury, and
the
fact they're not putting up 100 points a game like they used to. They're winning with defense, which is a little new.
Yeah, but I mean, I think that the fact, Michael Thomas is having an amazing year. Kamara is solid.
Another MVP candidate, really, if you are throwing an extra guy in there who's at I think Michael Thomas is that guy.
No, it does not matter what quarterback is throwing him that ball.
And I think they got confidence because they were able to win without Breeze, and now he's back. So if you get, I praised the Niners incredibly at the beginning of this video, and I think a Niners-Saints NFC Championship would be one hell of a matchup. But if that happens, I'm going to take Drew Brees over Jimmy Garoppolo.
Yeah, and that NFC, that chalk, there's no chalk there.
No.
I mean, any of the 6 teams that look like they're going to be in the playoffs right now could very well win in the NFC. It's scary. And I think, for what you're saying on the AFC side, you've got a couple of teams that look like they could be it. But the Pats are definitely one. So if I could trade picks, I would.
Well, Matt,
if we want to swap picks,
let me jump in here though. Your Super Bowl picks may have not gone so well, but some team we haven't talking about is the Minnesota Vikings and your boy Kirk Cousins.
That's true.
Really, since the last time they were 2-2 and circling the drain.
And people were calling for Kirk's head, right?
Yeah.
And then he came out and became NFC Offensive Player of the Month.
I mean,
so
add authority.
So add the Vikings to another that playoff team.
Mix. Right. I think that's fair. So any of those teams, Vikings, Pack. Dallas or Philadelphia, whoever comes out of that.
Who the heck? Maybe even the Rams. We haven't even talked anything about the Rams.
The Rams might be on the outside looking in at this point.
Right.
I mean, if you look at, San Francisco just threw a whole wrench into their system. What they were expecting. If you're 5-4 at this point in the season and you're the Rams, you're probably feeling pretty good, but not right now.
Yeah. Are we shifting gears because we keep talking about...
I think Matt's stalling here.
We're going to talk about you for a second. But we talked last time about NFC North being the best division in football. Are you still feeling that way, or is it the NFC West now?
No, I think it's clear. I think it's clearly the NFC West.
Yeah.
I mean, you potentially have both wild card teams. You got an undefeated team and potentially 2 wild cards. Arizona is not a good team, but they've not been as bad as people thought. 3-5-1. Yeah, they're spunky. Their defense is horrid, but they're doing enough on offense. I mean, Kyler's playing decent, and the running backs are pretty solid. But yeah, I think that's the best division.
I think the Bears falling apart
is really
knocked down the whole NFC North.
Exactly.
Yeah. If they weren't playing even halfway decent now, I think they'd still be in the conversation as having the best division, because there's 2 other teams plus the Bears if they were in there, and then one. The Detroit was looking pretty good at the beginning of the season and kind of falling apart. But yeah, I think the NFC West is it. That was my pick right before the season started. I think. Yeah, I think I took them to go the whole NFC West to go to the Super Bowl.
The whole NFC West to go to the Super Bowl?
Yeah, I think that's what I picked. That's better than the picks that I have.
Well, let's talk about your picks.
It's more likely than the picks I took. So I just.
You're gaslighting us here on the Harkleroad-Adams.
I was giving you a segue.
So you had Chargers over Bears.
Yeah, I did. Okay.
But for a number of different reasons, that's probably not going to happen.
No, yeah, I think.
Though they did play to a very interesting game a couple weeks ago with, hey, look, another Bears missed field goal.
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, I think Trubisky has just been, he's gone the other way, and I kind of picked them hoping he would take even a half step forward, and they would have been fine. But yet everything seems to be falling apart around the fact that he has degressed, if that's a word, instead of progressed. Regressed, that's the right word. Regressed instead of progressed.
I was just going to let it slide, and then Chris just walked right in.
Egress, whatever. I think, and then the Chargers was maybe more of a wishful thinking pick, just thinking that they were pretty good last year, won 11 games, and then hoping that Rivers would get his chance at a Super Bowl, but does not look good at this point. And I think the Melvin Gordon situation plus the injuries has just been maybe a little too much for them to fight through.
Yeah, well, I think our viewers wanted to give you a little bit of a mulligan if you want to do a better Super Bowl pick.
I will not take new picks, but I will pick my what will be the funnest Super Bowl, and I'm going to take Baltimore versus San Francisco in a game that the pundits will say will be 10-10, and both quarterbacks will throw for 500 yards.
So that will happen.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's what I'm going to say that's my pick, but not my official pick, because I need to pay for this.
And we got at least 2 more videos, and so you will be paying for this. Any final thoughts? How are you guys thinking about, we'll be recording a video in probably about 3 or 4 weeks, and the playoff picture should be a little clearer, but how are you guys thinking the second half of the season is going to...
Yeah, I mean, I think the NFC, there's going to be a lot of jockeying at the top. I mean, I think you've got 3 teams in the West, 2 teams in the North, 1 team in the South, and although Carolina is... record-wise, talent-wise, I don't think they're there, but they're better than people have thought.
But I think maybe putting Cam down for the year is probably a good thing for them right now.
Yeah, I think so.
I think it's a distraction that they don't want or need, and I think maybe that'll be interesting to see how that shakes out. So,
and then you get a full evaluation on Kyle Allen.
Right. So you think you got, 8 teams then?
Yeah, I was going to say you got 2 teams in the East, 2 teams in the North, 2 in the South, and then 3 in the West.
Yeah, 3 in the West. So 8 or 9 teams.
Yeah, battling for 6 spots.
Yeah, that's like 2/3 of the entire conference is still in it.
Yeah, and they look like they're pretty good. Yeah. On the AFC side,
I would say I think you've got right now the division winners in 3 of the 4 divisions are sort of have pulled away, but the wild card is still very much up in the air between a lot of.
It could be it could be one of 8 teams, 2 of 8 teams maybe, and the wild card that they could have a chance to.
Yeah, a lot of teams there, a lot of teams who could be in the mix. There's a number of 4-4 or 5-4 teams, and
I still feel like Buffalo and Indianapolis are probably those 2 wild card teams at this point.
At this point, but again,
like I said, that's
we don't know. Yeah. Buffalo still has not played a great schedule thus far, although they've been fairly impressive. But there's a lot of wild card teams that could emerge.
Yeah, I mean, you throw the Raiders in there, throw an outside shot at a team like the Chargers, but I mean, for the most part, Titans, who knows? Whoever their quarterback is these days, Tannehill being the quarterback. I mean, anything's possible.
Heck, with the Browns' back half of the schedule, who knows?
I thought that before too, but
ever the optimist. I like it.
I'm not saying I expected that.
No, I understand. Any additional thoughts? Any kind of rants? Any other comments?
Well,
finish up.
Unfortunately, I ranted about this in the last video, and I think there's going to have to be some more time spent on ranting about these officials. It has been...
It's gotten worse!
I don't know how many seasons I remember the NFL refs being this big of a story, game-changing calls that are obviously not the right calls, and they put in this review system that no one uses, it never works, and then they can't review something like the hands of the face thing, which should be clear on a video. Like this, whether or not there's pass interference is more ambiguous than whether or not somebody's touching someone's face, right? And like you can review the one and not the other, and it's just this whole system is going to implode.
I think the most, we talked about the replacement refs a few years ago. That's probably it. But these guys are not replacement refs. They are the best of the best.
Yeah, and there's no accountability for them. They never, if they make a bad call, they show up next week and they do the same thing again. Like it's just, it's been bad. That's my rant.
Yeah.
How about you, Chris? You got one?
Yeah, I mean,
dig deep, my friend. I know you got it.
Yeah, I mean, just getting into a lot of the pundits out there and some of the announcers. On announcers, can people please stop talking about 11 personnel versus 12 personnel? I feel like that you never heard that until this year in a broadcast, and now like
it's every game,
every game, and more
RPOs,
more so in the games done by Borger McFarland. But that's also something that like the average football fan has no idea what is 11 personnel versus 12 personnel, and they just say it like it's
and 11 personnel isn't a shorter way to say the thing they're talking about either. It's not an abbreviation at this point. Like RPO makes sense. It's 3 letters versus run pass.
But they still 3 syllables. Right. That's the problem.
Still 3 syllables. It doesn't make sense. But ultimately, and then pundits in general. Like,
Rex Ryan, like what's he doing?
I mean, it's like he's trying to fight players now. I don't understand. Like, how did this happen?
Something's changed. Something will never ever change.
Rex Ryan not being entertaining to watch. Never changing.
All right. Well, I think that wraps up our show for this week, for this quarter and this half. We'll be back in a couple of weeks for the
third quarter.
The third quarter, the final playoff push. What are your Twitter handles, guys?
I'm at Matt Hark.
At the C Adams.
I'm at Mr. Andrew here. Thank you guys so much for watching. Like, subscribe, leave us a review, some comments. We'll see you guys again in a few weeks. Thanks, everyone.
See ya.
See ya.